Hello and welcome to the show. We start this week's FailRace episode with Bradders on GTA 5 driving one of the armoured police vans when everything goes a little bit wrong in an AI car. Now the crash against the AI car is one of those things that happened. The thing is, it managed to launch the vehicle that was much needed into a garden it can't get out of. Ah, lovely AI car timing. Not a Rambo up next. Also on GTA 5 is modifying their Cyclone when they notice the vehicle is drivable in the garage. Again, not really what's supposed to be happening with the car. Admittedly, it hasn't really got all that far. You can see a little bit through the world when you spin the camera around. But yeah, it just managed to shuffle forward a bit. That's not normally how it goes. I guess they still have control over the throttle. For whatever reason, it hasn't been disabled when being modified. In fact, to the point where it can spin the wheels. Only the front wheels, oddly, not the back wheels. That's kind of peculiar. Speaking of cars doing weird things in garages, Sylvia up next on Street Legal Racing Redline, or with a chassis that doesn't really want to stay put. In fact, it wants to do some tricks and stunts while inside the garage. I'm guessing, it looked like when something was removed from the car it got all very, very unhappy. Quite why that is the case, I don't know, but this is Street Legal. Sometimes it does funky things to begin with, but yes, we've just got a bouncy, unhappy chassis that very much doesn't want to be, well, it kind of does want to be the right way around, but every time it tries to fall the right way around, it then jitters itself back over. You can see the game's trying to shuffle it back onto where it should be, but as soon as it gets there, it's then bounce and bounce and maybe you're just supposed to build the car on its side. Who knows? Why not? Maybe go for that idea. Friend stuff up next on Assetto Corsa, racing a very classic Formula 1 car. I think this is the BRM. Regardless, whichever one it is, these things are difficult to drive, and they get things a little bit wrong. They bounce on the inside grass, that fires them out wide to the outside grass to the next corner. Can't really get it stopped in time as it goes flying off the track, and it's a big jump over a house, pretty much, for the car as it bounces and twists and flips around, and it does come back down onto its wheels. That's a pretty big off. And then some donuts on the grass for not much grip out there, I would imagine, for this particular car. Oh, we're going to go for another one, are we? Yep, not quite got the setting off. It's a really simple little error that goes on. It just turns in a little bit too much on the way in, doesn't quite have the grip, is then out wide, and still fighting the car, and it's just bumpy. Once you're off the track, it's very difficult to regain that, and then can't get it slowed down. It's a huge jump off of a kind of grassy bank, and then some tumbles for good. I don't think actually it flew over the house in terms of height-wise, but it didn't fly over it in terms of actual physical flight path. Either way, Mike Blatt's up next on Project Cars 2 is driving the 355 Challenge. Absolutely love this car, wonderful car. When things go wrong in the braking zone, so they dive on the brakes, lose the back end of the car. Okay, that can happen. The flip, that's not supposed to. It's not supposed to happen. I can understand the wiggle under braking. Sometimes if you get it wrong, as the car usually dive under the brakes, the weight transfers forward and the cars can move around. I don't quite know how this one dug in and went for a flip, but there we go. Taco Catbell on Need for Speed Heat is doing a race. There are some police cars involved. Ends up clonking the back of one that sends the Mercedes into a flip. Another police car comes along for good measure, punts the Mercedes along. It does land back down on its wheels. The initial kind of flick up into the air is very, very impressive, I must say. And luckily for them, ends up going straight through a petrol station and be able to repair the car immediately. Quite helpful. Speaking of police doing funky things, it's on Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. Confused Deer is racing, leading the way, gets taken out by a police car. So you have to frantically spin it around and get it going again. More police cars causing trouble, jumping over. I think the Ferrari went for a flight in all of that. It turns out police cars stopped on the crest of a hill and vehicles racing is a recipe for disaster. The Shy Ammonite up next on SnowRunner. SnowRunner physics. You never know what you're going to get. This time they're trying to recover. I think their friend's got that. Regardless, whatever happens, as soon as the vehicles are connected, they didn't even have a chance to move. All manner of angry physics has occurred. I mean, for the vehicle that we're following here, it's actually still about where it was. But I don't know. Black and Red up next on SnowRunner, the glitchy truck that's making a new game. Yes, glitchy truck is slingshotting vehicles around here. The other players truck is long gone. I guess they disconnected the tow rope, so the vehicle we're with goes to do a similar thing to see what would happen. I mean, you know what's going to happen at this particular point. It's not quite as impressive as the slingshot that went on, but whatever's got into that truck, it is doing bad things to everything around it. Oh, SnowRunner. Weird, weird collisionness. I mean, I guess if you disconnected the winch, you'd probably get this one flung across the map as well. It's definitely not having a good time whatsoever. Mustang Bugatti up next on Beam was wanting to do an experiment. Now, Formula 1 car, fairly quick in a straight line. Question is, what would happen if you put a sudden massive amount of tailwind behind it? I think the idea was to try and see how fast it could go. So they get it up to speed, pause the game, use, I guess, like a wind generator to get a 470 mile an hour tailwind. Now, funnily enough, it doesn't really work. As you can imagine, the vehicle gets completely out of control and is spinning and bouncing and twisting through the air. The impressive bit, though, is the helicopter that goes on as it's spinning and twisting. Oh, there we go. We're going to go for a massive helicopter towards the ground. At some point, it clonks it, and we're still cartwheeling over here. Yeah, that might have been a little bit too much tailwind. I'm just a sneaky suspicion. Just a sneaky suspicion there. A little bit too much of the old tailwind went on, and now it doesn't really resemble a car anymore. And finally, we have steel guns on Beam. Now, they're playing around with a mod that adds a spike strip. The problem is, it does some funky things to the vehicles. Okay, so the tyre models get all freaked out a little bit. It does look quite wacky, it's safe to say. I mean, it stopped the vehicle. It didn't stop it in a controlled or safe manner. This time hitting it dead on. It got all of the tyres down. The vehicle just doesn't seem, it just picks up speed when the tyres are gone. I guess it's like whatever's broken in the model is like pulling it along, but it gets very confused. This one here is even weirder because it hits the spike strip and then instantly goes the other direction. It's being flung along at huge amounts of speed down here until it hits the bridge. And then there's not much car left. Turns out they're definitely not a safe option, the spike strips. They're definitely not a safe option at all in terms of stopping a bit spectacular. But it does turn the vehicle into a little cube of metal at some point. But there we go. That is going to be it for this episode as ever. If you have clips you'd like to submit to this series, you can via our forums. At the very top of the page is the FailRace clips submission section. And in there you can find all of the rules and how to submit them. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.